When are the Giants going to lose, really? I mean, this is kind of a trap game for them, right? On Sunday against Jacksonville?
It's funny you say that, Jeff, because you can legitimately look at the Eagles' schedule and be like, when are they going to lose? And
Evan Boilard back in the house. I'm living on cloud nine right now with Philadelphia sports and my sports teams. But, I mean, come on, man. I'm checking into the press box at Lincoln Financial Field Sunday, and I'm watching the Giants game, and the security guard's like, oh, my God, they're going to win. I said, I know this is crazy. Like, they had no business being the Ravens Sunday, and yet they pulled it off again.
Jeff, if I told you we'd be sitting here on this show, headed into week 7, and the Giants would be 5-1, and I wouldn't have an inch of wiggle room to talk a little smack with you, I wouldn't be able to explain how that would be possible. But not the rest of the world. I don't know if there's news for you. The rest of the world isn't rooting for the Philadelphia sports takeover, man. The Eagles and the Phillies and even the Flyers now. One of them, they got to lose. They got to lose. At least the Sixers lost last night to make things more interesting, right?
The Sixers were not losing on basically Bill. We're not winning on Bill Russell night. That's how I approach that game. I'm like, you know what? There's no way the Celtics are going to lose on this night, not especially with the way they played. But overall, I gotta say, if I had to pick a win between those teams, it was going to be the Phillies, and I got it. So I'm pretty satisfied.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm glad you can just take your pick, which team ever you want to win, because none of them lose anymore, apparently.
Well, we were joking in the CBS Sports Room on Sunday when the Giants and the Jets won. We're like, oh wow, New Jersey teams are 9-3.
Yeah, man, I'm glad that the Jets are kind of thriving a little bit. They kind of got lumped in, like we've talked about a couple of times on this show, but a couple of years ago about how bad the NFC East was and how everyone was making memes and jokes about them. Like there were just as many jokes last year about how the Giants and the Jets are so bad and have been so bad for so many years. So to see the Jets kind of get a little shine, they got their turn to beat the Packers. So, hey, the Giants can share a little bit of love.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though. When are the Giants going to lose? Really? I mean, this is kind of a trap game for them, right? On Sunday against Jacksonville.
It's funny you say that, Jeff, because you can legitimately look at the Eagles' schedule and be like, when are they going to lose? And have a hard time finding it. But come on, you can't watch these 6 Giants games and think, when are they going to lose? Like any at a moment's notice, it looks like they could lose, but they somehow keep winning. And I feel like this game against Jacksonville is, I don't know if it's the trap game or if it's just kind of the pendulum game, I guess you could call it, because every game they've been, they were, I think, 9-point underdogs against the Packers. They were 5.5-point underdogs at home against the Ravens. But you can make arguments for each of that. Like this week, they're, I think, a 2.5-point underdog going to Jacksonville, who's 2-4, and the Giants are 5-1. It's just insane disrespect. But now every Giants fan out there is kind of making a point of it and saying, oh, this is crazy disrespect. They don't think we're going to win. They don't going to think we're winning. That's when you lose. That's when you lose. When you start thinking, oh, how could we lose the 2-4 Jaguars? They stink. Like, I feel like I've seen some moments out of Trevor Lawrence this year where I wouldn't be surprised to see him put it together against the Giants. And, that would be the way the pendulum tends to swing.
They are such an enigma to me, the Giants. I pointed out a stat earlier. Their leading wide receiver is Richie James with 189 yards. Tyreek Hill had 190 yards in the game this year. They don't do anything sexy at all. Like their defense doesn't get turnovers, not really unless Lamar Jackson's causing them. And the giveaway takeaway margin isn't great. I mean, a lot of the things you would think of when you see a 5-1 football team, they're not. But here they are. They separated themselves from essentially that mediocre NFL that it feels like that should be the story of the year this year, and it's not.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. I think the reason maybe it isn't, Jeff, is because people are afraid to jump on the bandwagon because it's not like they've looked great. So it's kind of hard to draw like a really defined strong take. Like the strongest takes that you've seen from like the national media on the Giants so far this year are like people apologizing to Daniel Jones, or, like saying like, oh, I guess we didn't really know we drew our conclusion too soon on him or other players. I've seen a few about Andrew Thomas as well, like guys who looked like busts, Gettleman guys who all of a sudden you get a little bit better coaching, maybe a little better team building with Joe Shane, and all of a sudden they look good. I also think that has something to do with like guys like Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley being in a contract year. Like, this is your last chance. You've got to perform now. If you don't, good luck on the open market next year. But I think that there's a few things that help. Saquon Barkley is looking like, if not the best, one of the best players in the league right now. Daniel Jones isn't losing the game. He's not turning the ball over. He only has 2 interceptions, and he hasn't had one in, I think, 3 games. So those are 2 big ones that keep the game close at the end. And then at the end, Daniel Jones is making, like you said, not sexy plays, but winning plays. And then the defense, Wink Martindale has done a great job disguising his pressures, really confusing the quarterbacks that they've gone up against. And they've gone up against some good ones. And Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, that's the past 3 MVP winners in those 2 players. So I think the defense is legit.
Yeah, I knew. And I knew this for weeks, that the Giants are a well-coached team. Saquon Barkley had an easy touchdown at the end of that game Sunday, and he did the famous Brian Westbrook, let's slide. I got the first down. The game's over. Like, why would you want to give Lamar Jackson another chance to get the football and potentially beat you?
Yeah, I saw some people, and I don't know if they maybe had Saquon on their fantasy team, saying like, oh, well, going up 11 is just as much ice in the game as it's like, nah, it's not really, because you got to give them the ball back. And what if they score quick and they can kick an onside kick? I understand it's like a far off possibility. It's like a 1% chance of that happening, but Saquon going down there basically makes it a 0% chance of the Ravens winning. So it was a smart play. I wonder if maybe if Saquon scores there, people see a final score instead of 24-20, they see 31-20. And maybe they're like, wow, maybe the Giants are like, legit. That would have been their first 30-point game, I think, where all the points were scored by the offense since like 2019. So that would have felt a little different had he gotten into the end zone on that play. But overall, like, I think that shows why the Giants are winning, is because Saquon's playing good football and he's playing smart football too. And he's taking care of his body. He's clearly got a shoulder injury. That's like, it looks like his shoulder just kind of on some hits, his arm just goes dead, but he'll come out for a couple plays and then he comes back. I've got a feeling like, okay, he's going to fumble the ball at some point. He's going to get hit in that shoulder. His arm's going to go dead and he's going to fumble the ball. But it hasn't happened yet. So yeah, it's just kind of like one of these Giant seasons where you're like, all these bad things could happen, but they haven't happened yet.
Do you think the Giants will make a move at the deadline? Do you think they'll try to upgrade at wide receiver or any of these areas where they have a lot of deficiencies?
Man, that's such a good question. And I think that, you know what? I bet you that Brian Daboll and Joe Shane are asking each other the exact same question, because I don't think for 1 second they thought they were going to be 5-1 at this point, looking like a winning team heading into the trade deadline. Because I think they were definitely going to be sellers. I think they were going to be showing off hopefully at the time, Kadarius Toney, Saquon Barkley. I think that heading into the season, there was really, not a lot on paper to feel super confident about Daniel Jones. But Daniel Jones is overperforming. The offensive line has been letting pressure through, but it's come together faster than I think anyone could have expected. And the defense has made a leap. So I think that they found themselves in this very strange situation where all of a sudden they might be looked at as buyers when they were going into the season and planning to be sellers. Although the only, I really think that they want to make it through this season without incurring like another big contract, because they don't have a lot of room this year and they want to limit how much, they dip into their coffers for next year and the year after. So I don't expect them to make a big splashy play. But I do think that fans are going to want to see something if they're still in the mix. I mean, there's been Odell Beckham Jr. buzz all year. Like Josina Anderson says that he would consider the Giants. I find that a little harder to believe, just because I know how much money is a factor for him, and I just don't know what the Giants can do on that front. But I think most likely the Giants still see themselves as sellers, and I think Kadarius Toney is the biggest piece on the potential trading block.
Even though it does look like, okay, we're going to play a game right now. List your 7 playoff teams in the NFC.
Okay. All right. Eagles are looking like the number 1 seed. And if you look at their schedule, I really they've got an inside track for that. I don't know how they kind of lose that. I think that the Vikings are going to win the NFC North. And that was a crazier thing. When I said that on your show, I think 2-3 weeks ago, that was a crazier sounding thing. But now it's not. When you look at the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions, that's actually kind of a weak division all of a sudden. NFC South is anyone's guess, man. I think that the Buccaneers are probably the odds-on favorite, but they're 3-3 right now, tied with the Falcons. And the West is just as much of a question mark. So, like I said, we've said it a couple times. I wouldn't be surprised if the NFC East, because of the way those schedules are and the mediocrity around the league, I wouldn't be surprised if 3 of those teams get into the playoffs. I definitely think 2 are. Right now, it looks good with the Giants at 5-1. But I'm going to go with, let's say the Giants and the Cowboys both make it. And then that leaves room for one more. Gosh, man, no one jumps off. I guess either the Rams or the 49ers or the Seahawks, whoever the second place team is in that division. And it still could be the Cardinals for all I know. Like, dude, that whole division could flip on its head. And then the NFC South is unpredictable as well.
We're not believing in the Falcons here, 3-3.
I believe in them more than some other people that I speak with. I actually had a prediction to our friend Jordan Dejani. He's a big Saints guy, been a big Jameis guy for a while. And I told him, I bet you the Falcons will be better. So I sent him a screenshot of the standings today or Monday, where the Falcons are 3-3 and the Saints are 2-4. It's obviously not the end, but I can't pass on an opportunity to dunk on a colleague like that.
Oh no, I wouldn't. Look, I've been dunking on the Saints all year, and I like the talent on that team, but I can't stand their head coach. Dennis Allen should not be a head coach in this league. Point blank.
That was kind of my take with, I think that there are some things that people just completely overlook. And I think that coaching, the Giants are a perfect example of this. Like, look at the impact of coaching. Like, I think that is a big reason too, Jeff, that people are afraid to jump on the Giants is because it's been so intangible. The reasons why they've been winning. It's a lot of the reasons are the coaching. And so people are so used to just saying like, oh, team X is good because quarterback Y is good, or they have a running back, or they have the best defense. And when you don't have any of those things, and all of a sudden you have to explain why a team is winning and it's the coaching, all of a sudden is very hard to explain for the common fan, So, I think that when you lose a coach of Sean Payton's caliber, like the Saints did, you don't just get better overnight. You're going to take a step back. That's my opinion. I can't think of another team, since 2000. I'm sure there's been one that's just like moved on to a new coach and was a good team before, got a new coach, and just kind of like kept sailing. I think of like George Seifert or Barry Switzer, but those are old, think of a newer example of that. There isn't one that I could think of.
Really, and I know it fell on the Eagles' face, but Chip Kelly was 20-12 his first 2 years here, and the Eagles looked like they were going to be still very good. They had the talent, but you're right, that fell on their face. They had to rebuild under Doug Peterson, so that was 3-4 years after Andy Reid. Yeah, I can't think of one, but there's a team that I think right now, and I'll tell you what, I think there's more fever in Seattle for their football team than ever, based on how surprising they've been and how bad Russell Wilson has been. Because I think Seahawks fans got tired of hearing, and they loved Russell Wilson. Oh, Pete Carroll's not a good coach. Well, no, I think Pete Carroll is a coach, and I think Shane Waldron's a good offensive coordinator. It's Russ just didn't buy into what they were selling anymore.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. And I think that, it's funny how many things are kind of coming to fruition. Like, a lot of narratives in terms of coaches and quarterbacks who, okay, was it this or that? Remember a couple of years ago is it Brady or Belichick? And then Brady goes down to Tampa Bay and wins without Belichick. It's like, we're kind of seeing the opposite of that with the Seattle situation with Pete Carroll and, the Broncos now with Russell Wilson. So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. What do you think about so do you see, as an Eagles fan, or do you think that the NFC East is like a one-team race now? I kind of heard you and Tone talking about this, and before you went to break, or do you see it like I see it? Like, I see it like a 3-team race as a Giants fan, but I don't know, man. After that Eagles Cowboys game,
I think they have the opportunity to gain some ground, but again, the Giants control a lot of this because Eagles don't play until December. They don't play until after Thanksgiving. So the Giants can stick around here and make these games bigger. But we don't know what the Giants are going to be. What, 9-3? At the very worst, that going into that game, I mean, they could go into a free fall based on how they play. They play with fire every week. Dallas, to me, the Eagles are up pretty much 3 games because they beat them already, and they have the tiebreaker. And I gotta be honest, Kevin, I think the Cowboys are a really good team, but man, I was in that locker room Sunday night, and there's so much smug in there. They're just like, well, if we had Dak, we would have won. They sound like they're fans. Like, dude, I want to hear it. The Eagles won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback.
Right. I agree. I do think that the Cowboys, you also have to remember, like, what was the narrative coming into the season? Like, everyone thought, okay, Dallas is going to run away with this division. They're the most talented, best team on paper. Maybe the Eagles are a wild card. The Giants and the Commanders will stink. And so right now you got the Cowboys all of a sudden in 3rd place with 4-2. So they've got to feel a certain way. They've got to be like, hey, 4-2 isn't bad considering we haven't had our starting quarterback since week 1. Like, yeah, the Eagles are 6-0 during this time, but like, how about you come see us at full strength? I do kind of understand that to an extent, but again, at the end of the day, your record is your record. And you're right. Like, you might be down your starting quarterback, but another team's, got 3 injuries in their secondary or something, like, I feel like we're so arbitrary with sometimes like the quarterback injuries because everyone views it as a quarterback driven league. And I get into this argument all the time with people where, oh, their quarterback is hurt. So, that's an excuse why they're not moving down in the power rankings or whatever, because when they're healthy, they're a top 5 team. It's like, okay, but they're not healthy. Like the Cowboys don't have a healthy Dak Prescott. And what makes you think, I heard Tone mention this as well, like what makes you think Dak Prescott's going to be the best version of Dak Prescott after not playing for a month and having a thumb injury that has impact the way he grips the football, like that's not, you can't just really overlook that. I know that they're definitely being careful and making sure, like, okay, are you gripping the football right? But dude, he hasn't been hit in a month. Like, that's going to take some time to, I think, get back in the groove. And Cooper Rush, until the Eagles game, was playing well,
No, he was. And, I said this to a couple of players, like, you have a right to be confident with Cooper because he did his job. I never would have guessed the Cowboys would have went 4-1 with Cooper Rush. I never would have guessed that. And he played so well for them. They were very efficient. But you could see, I guess the Rams game really exposed it a bit. He was vulnerable. He was what he was. He was a serviceable backup quarterback that all you had to do was really get pressure on him and force him to play from behind, which the Rams couldn't do. But the Eagles could. And like Dallas looked at that game like, oh, we were down 23 and came back. And I just said, well, no, not really, because comebacks, you got to take the lead. You made it interesting, but then the Eagles basically put their foot on the gas and beat you down again. So
I would say the Cowboys won 1 quarter. They won the 3rd quarter, and then the Eagles won the other 3. So it's not really worth bragging about. Yeah, they did make it interesting for a short period there, but if you watch that game in its entirety, you can't come away thinking anything other than the Eagles dominated them. That was utter domination in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, they didn't have their starting quarterback, but like, wasn't really an excuse for the first few weeks or when they were winning. So I don't know. I think that I was kind of up in the air on those 3 defenses. I know we've talked about that too. Like the Eagles, the Giants, and Cowboys all seem like they have good defenses this year, which I think is awesome. That's throwback NFC East. I think it's what makes, these teams, like, it's a lot of their identity, not just this year, but historically. So I am now team Eagles. I think they have the best defense after seeing what they did against the Cowboys. I think that secondary has a potential to be like one of those. Do they have a nickname yet? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, Legion of Boom.
They don't. I guess you can call the secondary. I was gonna say. I guess you can call secondary no fly zone, but
that's already been done though. They need a new one. And I don't know what it could be, but they better start talking about it now. I mean, quietly, maybe in the locker room, leak that out to the media, or the media's got to start working on whatever the nickname is. They probably shouldn't nickname themselves.
The only notable thing that the Eagles have done on defense in terms of story headlines is interviewing James Bradbury and Darius Slayton. And I have a question for you all. How the Giants let you leave that locker room? And like, Bradbury takes it so humbly. Like, the other day, Zach McPherson, everybody was his locker's right next to Slay and Bradbury. He goes, oh man, everybody's going over seeing them again. All they do is play well every single week, and everybody just kind of laughs at them. Like, you can tell they have fun, but it really is a team effort with that defense.
Well, the thing that really blows me away about those two is like, well, first of all, there's two of them. So you can't just, if you're a quarterback, you can't just avoid one and throw at the other one because they're both like, it's kind of like having two number one corners. And like they make so many plays. Like a lot of times when you have a great cornerback, you don't hear him. And that means he's doing good because he's not being targeted or, the receiver's just not getting open. Like, no, like James Bradbury had like 4 pass breakups in the first half of the Cowboys game. And like Darius Slay was all over the ball as well. And then even like the other guys, like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think he had an interception in the game, didn't he? Or he had a tip ball at least. Yeah, it was like, dude, how is that guy like I didn't even realize he's playing. Is he playing safety for them?
Yeah. They moved him because they got Avonte Max in the slot.
Yeah, that's like an insane amount of talent that you have someone of that level who was like one of the best slot corners in the league the last couple of years. All of a sudden, oh yeah, you can play safety for us, I guess. Like, and you just got so many guys who can catch the ball back there or get their hands on the ball at the very least. And the pressure up front is no slouch too. That was kind of where I was split with them in the Cowboys. I kind of like the Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence pass rush duo a little bit better. I don't know if maybe the Eagles have 2 guys that are on that level, but dude, they were getting after it. And they've always had Fletcher Cox, good player, Derek Barnett. So, I mean, they've had guys up there, maybe who have just kind of like, we're jaded or like non-Eagles fans kind of say, oh yeah, that guy's been around for years now. Like, type of thing, whereas Micah Parsons is still new and it's like fun and exciting,
Yeah, I love Micah Parsons, but he was making a lot of excuses for the stat I put up this week where he didn't have a sack. He only had 3 pressures in the game. Oh, by the way, all those pressures came when Lane Johnson was out of the game. And Jack Driscoll, who a lot of people thought he dominated, actually he didn't. Driscoll only allowed 1 pressure to Micah Parsons, but the Eagles took that third quarter to pretty much adjust their offensive line and their philosophy because Johnson was out. But Parsons is like, oh, yeah, I did more than you think. I did more than box score said. I'm like, dude, I watched the game. You did not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Where was the impact? Because the Eagles pretty much did whatever they wanted. I would say, or I want to ask you, I don't know if you saw, I think it was Chris Long who tweeted it. And it was like the Megamind meme of like single. You know what I'm talking about? Where it was like single team Micah Parsons, double team Micah Parsons, build your whole game plan around Micah Parsons. It's like, don't block. And then like the ultimate one was like, don't block him at all. So he has to like stop and think about where he's supposed to be on the field and it freezes him for a second. Like, do you think that the Eagles kind of figured something out with Micah Parsons? Like no one's been able to figure this guy out. And like the Eagles totally neutralized them almost by like giving him less attention than ever before.
I honestly think they made him guess. Like they were running pass plays to his side because it's like, oh, I got to cover this guy or I got to do this or no, I can't do the one thing I want to do, which is go after the quarterback. The one thing that's going to make me money. And I made a joke in the press box in the third quarter. I'm like, Micah Parsons has probably done more in terms of taunting penalties than he actually has making an impact in this game. And I loved it. Like Jack Stoll had that big completion early in the game. Because that was Micah Parsons' guy, and he's probably like, there's no way Jack Stoll's getting the football. Jack Stoll got the football. Then all of a sudden, you have to think about that. And maybe it's because the Eagles have those weapons that can neutralize a really great player like him.
It's totally speculative, but who do you think is most to thank for that? Do you think it's the personnel, like having a running quarterback like Jalen Hurts, or do you think it's like, was this something you think Sirianni or Steichen saw like in film and we're like, let's give this a shot? Like no one else has done it yet.
It might be both. It's like, okay, we have the personnel where we can do this. So that's what I'm thinking. All I know is this. Again, love Micah Parsons, think he's a top 3 defensive player in football. But if someone tells me he's better than Nick Bosa, I'm just going to laugh. I'm like, no, he's not. Nick Bosa does this every single week. When Nick Bosa has a bad game, he gets a sack. And look, I'm not even counting TJ Watt in this because TJ Watt's hurt. But
yeah,
I mean, look, to me, it's Watt, Bosa, Parsons right now. If I had to go by. And I can't even keep out. I'm just going off pure pass rushers. Like Aaron Donald to me is more than a pass rusher.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I would have no argument with you there. But I'm also a Cowboys hater, so I'm not gonna sit here and stump for Micah Parsons. He's a good player. Dude, I want to real quick. I saw your tweet, kind of teasing this, and you asked, do the Commanders automatically become a better team now that Carson Wentz is out with a finger injury? And I'm not going to say that they're a better team because on paper, I don't think that they are, but I've mentioned it before on this show and I'll mention it again in this. Taylor Heineke, is he definitely going to be the starter?
Yes, he's
Taylor Heineke. You could get the backup quarterback effect, which we've talked about before, the Nick Foles effect, I've called it, where everyone kind of goes, all right, time to rally the troops. And we'll all have to play 1 or 2% harder. And, maybe you find a takeaway here or there. And like Taylor Heineke's a juice guy, dude. Like those players like Taylor Heineke. He's probably the opposite of Carson Wentz in terms of like how he's viewed in the locker room. And yeah, I think that he can win, maybe not by making a crazy play. I know he likes to run and dive for that pylon. He's done it a few times, but I think that, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, Carson Wentz has six interceptions in 6 games. So, if he doesn't turn the ball over, he's given his team a better chance than Carson Wentz was. It doesn't matter how many plays he does make, but they're going to have to play good defense and run the ball well in order to win. They're playing the Packers, I think, this week. Yep. We've seen the Packers are a beatable team. So I wouldn't be surprised. And then if they're 3-4, a game under 500, I'm not saying they're back in the race, but it's at least they're not completely out of it. If they're 3-4 after this week,
Well, that's the thing. And I always say too, if you can name, if I ask someone to name all 32 backup quarterbacks in the league, if you can name a certain teams right away, you probably have a good one.
Yeah, very true. Very good point. And not only that, like Heineke has started for this team under this coaching staff. A lot of, if not for the money that Carson Wentz brought with him there, I wonder if it would have been more of an open quarterback battle. They kind of just committed themselves to Carson Wentz, I feel like, because of just, I don't really know why. Other than the financials of it, there's really no reason why they would. All right, yeah, we're definitely going with him over Heineke. Heineke's kind of a fan favorite.
It's weird too because I thought this team last year with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm like, okay, they could get into the playoffs again with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Then Ryan Fitzpatrick gets hurt, and Heineke leads into a 7-8 record. It's like, okay, that's what they were. Now you're going to get the fair evaluation of, okay, is our offensive line really this bad? Are our wide receivers this inconsistent? Can we not get the ball at tight ends? Or, is our offense really discombobulated? Or was it really Carson Wentz holding on to the football too long? You're going to find out a lot in the next 6 weeks.
I think we will too. And it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Again, I still see it as like a 3-team race right now, but I could see it getting interesting. I could see the Giants kind of, falling a little bit down to earth and Washington getting hot with Heineke. So we'll see. I just hope that it stays tight. I don't want the Eagles to pull away with this thing. And then I just got to sit here and watch the race to 17-0, man. That's not the type of season I want to be following.
I just don't think, I'm sorry. I don't see them going 17-0. It's the NFL. You're going to stumble at some point.
Where's the loss? I ask you, I implore you to point to the loss.
I keep trying to tell myself that. I'm like, look, you're going to lose again to a team they shouldn't lose to. And then you look at every team and you watch these teams every week. You're like, boy, this team stinks. And
I know the Eagles play well. I mean, if you were looking at this blind, you'd think, oh, maybe the Steelers, they haven't looked great.
They'll play them tough. I'll say that because it's Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. Maybe the Colts, they've taken a step back. The Packers, they've taken a step back. The Titans, they're not what they were. So yeah, I don't really know, man. I do not know where the loss is on the Eagles schedule. And that's really frustrating for me.
The Giants, week 14.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's clearly week 14 and week 18. I see 2 losses very, very clear on the schedule. Those are the only ones, though.
I will guarantee you this. If there's any game I think the Eagles will not lose this year, it's the Chicago Bears, which I'll probably eat my words for that. But they should not lose to that team.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought of this. If the Eagles are 16-0 going into week 18 and the Giants beat them and ruin their perfect season, I might take more individual joy and pleasure out of that win than when the Giants ruined the Patriots.
Even if it's Gardner Minshew and the motley crew.
If they're going for an undefeated season, you think they'll play backups?
The Colts did it. By the way, I was so mad when they did that, when they put in Jim Sorgi and those guys. I'm like, oh my God, just win the game, Jim. Like, what are you doing?
I know. Well, we'll see. I guess that's a decision. How about that? Yeah, in week 6. Oh, should the Eagles rest their starters if they're going for an undefeated season in week 18? That is just such that is highbrow analysis.
By the way, I have to laugh at that. Have you ever been to Hard Rock Stadium, Kevin?
No.
Oh, you know what the Dolphins have in there, right?
What? No, I can only imagine.
So they put Super Bowl 7 champions, and on the bottom it says 1972, the lone perfect season. Yeah. What a savage move. I mean, it's true though. Like, they're the only perfect season.
I heard the guys who are still around from that team, like, every year will pop a bottle of champagne when the last undefeated team loses. So the Eagles are that team. I guess the remaining members of the 72 Dolphins, all eyes are on the Eagles and their schedule.
Do you still watch NFL Primetime, by the way?
From time to time. Yeah, it's obviously not what it used to be, but for sure.
It's still good. I still like when the last winless team wins and Berman pops the champagne. That is awesome.
It is. That's a good shtick.
Yeah, it really is. Like, there's some really good shticks. Like, what was it? He did on Sunday, Breece Hall, when he did the misdirection touchdown. He goes, one direction. I'm like, all right, Berman, you still got it.
He does still got it. I'm sure he's got a team of ESPN writers helping him, but
the whole Giants thing. Every time he says Giants, he has to go, Giants? Like, every week he does it.
Yeah, man, that was like the soundtrack of my childhood.
It still is a good show. I do recommend, like, if you want to watch like just actual highlights, just go to ESPN Plus. It's just straight 45 minutes.
Well, before Red Zone, that was my thing, man. Like, that gap in between the 4:00 games when they would end and before the Sunday night game starts used to be NFL primetime. Like, you get like 60 to 90 minutes of highlights right there. And, now it kind of loses its luster because you see it all so fast on social media and on Red Zone.
And it's weird too, because there's no hot takes in it. It's just him and Booger McFarland essentially just seeing what they saw. They're going, like, as the games are coming in, like when Chiefs Bills are coming in on Sunday. It was right after the game. I'm watching it on my iPad, and Berman's like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna do this now. Oh, yeah. It's over. Okay, we're in. It's Chiefs Bills." And it's just the real time of it. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I could run to 2 hours listening to the NFL primetime music.
Same here. It's the only thing. It powers me. It fuels me through my day. I just have it playing in my ears 24 hours. I only take it out for this show, but.
Oh, okay. Well, I see how this will. Once again, Kevin, I appreciate you. Heavy on Giants. Kevin Boilard, you can catch him on there. He's going to be on every Wednesday, breaking down the NFC East, and maybe I got to stop putting him on because the Giants just keep winning. Maybe
that's what it is, Jeff. It's.
I think they've only lost once since I brought you on here.
I know. So keep it up.
All right, Kevin. Once again, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Catch you later.